In this video, I'm going to take you through the front, middle, and back side of how long a project takes and how you can piece it all together and really understand this and create your own vision, and so that you can double check your contractor, the timeline, or see if the project fits within your pro forma. So do you want to know how to look at it? Do you want to know all the parameters that go into identifying the duration? If so, you've come to the right place. All right, so you knew I was going to go over here to this flip chart because I love this flip chart. Let me talk to you about this specific topic, but I'm going to draw it out. The customer demand for a project is set by the substantial completion date. The substantial completion date is when you can have what's called beneficial occupancy, meaning you can occupy it in a way that benefits the client. You can move in the end users, you can move in the renters, you can move in whoever's going into that building, you can move them in. So your substantial completion will mark the point when the local authorities having jurisdiction will allow you to occupy the building and when they feasibly can begin their move-in. So this is the customer demand, okay? This is what I want to bring your mind to. Now, a lot of people, like I've said in other videos, a lot of owners, a lot of developers will say, I just want a schedule that will get me there. The torpedoes be damned, don't care, you're going to finish, that's it. That's not how construction should work. That's not how we identify how long a construction project takes. You see, there's this key thing. In addition to demand, there's supply. So if you have trade partners, and again, I'm doing this in a time by location format, and you have the work in 1 zone, 2 zones, 3 zones, this incline, this diagonal line shows the production rate that those trade partners can adhere to or follow or achieve to actually get to the end date. So if you have a demand, your substantial completion on a project, you have got to take multiple phases and work this down so that diagonal line represents that production rhythm, right? And you've got to understand how it meets at the end. So your supply, how fast your trade partners can go, must match the demand. Now, there are some parameters on both sides of this. This right here, for the money that's being spent and the time, which actually equals money, meaning if you can't get this soon enough, it's going to cost you dollars, either in leasing or using that data center or using that hospital or whatever, right? This date has got to work with what the industry calls the pro forma of that developer or that owner, meaning it's got to financially pencil out. But you can't just wish think yourself into this. You've got to have the supply side of that match. So the key for identifying how long a construction project takes is really the merging of supply and demand sides of the equation. So let me work this backwards for you on a construction project, how I look at it, okay, and how you can look at it as well. All right, so let's go to the end of the project. We have obviously our substantial completion, all right? I'm going to rattle off a lot of terms here, but this is basically when the building is substantially finished, all of your green tags or green cards are signed off by the city inspectors, and that you are authorized by the authority having jurisdiction, the county, the city, the state, the federal government, whoever's in charge, to actually occupy the building. That means that you will have had to get all systems online, do most of your commissioning efforts, have a preliminary balancing report, do your fire alarm testing, have fire sprinklers installed, state elevator inspection 100% complete, all engineering sign-offs ready to go. It's clean, finished, and there's an owner and architect punch list. Okay, so this right here means that you can start occupying the building. But most of the time, there's still a punch list that needs to be completed. So there's going to be amount of time here, whether it's 2 weeks or a month or 6 weeks or multiple months, where you go from substantial completion to final completion, okay? So I'm just going to put that as an FINCOMP, okay? This means that it's done, freaking done, DDFD. What you'll see in here in between is owner move-in, You will see the completion of the punch list, typically any change orders that the end users or occupants want. And you will also see something called the finalizing of the functional performance testing. That means you're closing out all commissioning items and making sure that everything is 100% complete. One thing I should have mentioned back here are ADA requirements, the Americans with Disabilities Act, making sure that all of that is 100% ready to go. In the meantime here, you're also probably going to be doing owner training. You're going to be locating and storing your attic stock, and you're going to be handing over in a collaborative and supportive environment the building to the people that will take it over. So you're making sure that you're getting the owner set up to manage and maintain that building. Okay, so this is us working back. You're going to get final payment here. You obviously have a warranty period, but this is what you're targeting because you do have that interim. Now, to figure out a project timeline, one of the biggest things that we have to consider here, and I'll put a B here, is buffers. Most people will say that construction project schedules can be built without buffers on a critical path or without schedule contingency. That is categorically not true. So you must have this inside the overall production plan or the schedule to absorb delays, to absorb interruptions to the construction, and the amount of buffers that you have here should be in direct proportion to the risks that you can identify in pre-construction for the actual project. Now, let me give you the overall structure here that I like to follow. Typically at the end, I like to see site work, okay? I like to see commissioning, which I'll mark as CX. Typically what happens here is that you'll see an exteriors phase that ties into the site work, obviously, right? And you'll see an interiors phase that ties into your commissioning. Then ahead of that, you have the superstructure, so I'll just do STR. And then ahead of that, you will have foundation, so I'll put FND. Okay, so this is typically what we're looking at here, but I do want to bring your mind to the fact that once the structure is up, you do want to get the exteriors and get it commissioned, and you do also want to get the exteriors and release the site so that you can close both of those out at the same time. So this is crucial. Even for most projects, you'll have two major considerations when it comes to the path of critical flow. Not a critical path, the path to critical flow. In fact, in the description below, I'll link you to a video that explains what the difference between those two are. So let me say this, for the commissioning, this has got to be detailed out. The only real way to do this is to get all of your people together and put this in as a part of a pull plan. Networking your hydronic piping to your HVAC systems, to your controls, through your internet with power and functioning throughout with the right sequence of operations. This is very complex to enable you to get to substantial completion. So make sure that that's detailed out. Your interiors, you'll typically want to break that between rough-in and finishes, and you'll want to start the commissioning effort, in fact, just a little bit sooner, floor by floor, so it can network and finish on time. For your exteriors, don't make the mistake of not breaking this out into production areas or zones. Please do that. And what I want you to do is tie the site and the exterior together and make sure that those zones match. Obviously, if you're doing one side of the building and completing it on the exterior, that will release this first part of the site. You must have a good exit strategy here and here for this to work. Most construction plans and durations are inaccurate because they don't map out this portion and they do not have buffers. Here, from a high-level standpoint, you want to know when the structure will release your interiors and when the structure will release your exteriors. Work that back to foundations and mobilization, and you have a really good overall path. Each of these phases must be broken out into zones, okay? And I'll link you to a video that shows you that. And it must have a sequence. And that sequence will repeat from zone to zone to zone, even in what you would consider to be non-typical or non-rhythmic buildings. And remember, you have this beautiful shape. This gives you your sequence, your line of balance, and then you tie it to another phase. So this connection, this shape with the connection happens from here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here, and then here to both of these, and allows you to structure that overall system. So if you ever need help with this, let us know. We actually have a calculator which will help you to make sure that these phase durations are correct. So this is the main thing that I wanted to communicate. But the other thing that I want to communicate are key timelines. Timelines, as described by Kevin Rice, he calls them timelines versus phases, are something like, let's say the switchgear, right? Let's say that on the interiors, you need to have your switchgear in to power everything up. There's a timeline for how you design the power, order the switchgear and all of the other electrical equipment, how that ties into your power supplier for the overall design. Does that tie into any solar, right? There's a timeline here that you can't, and this is the way you say it, don't go to sleep on this, right? Your path of critical flow probably for sure does something like this, okay, all the way through. But these timelines have a huge part to play in that. So when you think about the overall timeline, make sure you're adding these key things: major efforts, so I'll just write major, long lead procurement, which is a huge thing, and then any other permissions, including permits. So just make sure timelines are managed in addition to phases. Work it back from final to substantial to your buffer. Network the key phases together to the beginning, and then look at the project from this standpoint. You must have the design. You must have the contractors. I'll write that for T for trades. You must have the coordination. You must have the materials, and you must have the permissions like I mentioned down here in order to get that started. So that's how you identify how long a construction project takes. And we'll link you in the description below to some instructions on how to do this and our book, Tack Planning. Oh, and our new book called Elevating Construction First Planners that will guide you through the whole process. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. On we go.